I'm preparing to live stream and all right, and I am also beginning the recording for the backup. And Natalie, if you would also record too, please. That way we'll make sure we're double covered.
All right, recording.
Hi, Megan.
Hi, Christine. How are you doing?
Fabulous. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well.
Good. Hi, Bob.
How you doing today?
Excellent. How are you?
Really good. Beautiful day.
Yes, absolutely. These are the days we live for.
Absolutely. And the garden's doing good too.
I bet. Hi, Jenny.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep, great to have
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Just making sure.
Yep.
I've got my video off because I just got back from a run and I'm a little red-faced and sweaty right now, but I'll turn it on later.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. So Susan, I'm going to stop sharing so we can welcome people in a little bit
Okay.
easier. Chris O'Connor also needs a link.
All right. Ray, would you like me to send that or are you available? I have it right up here. I'll go ahead and send. So just sent him his, or resent his link.
Great, thank you. I had a feeling I should go check my email. Hi, Claire. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Susan, Bianca needs a link,
All right.
and Brett Morgan needs a link.
I believe nothing went out on Tuesday, just so you have a heads up. I searched my inbox for, might not have gone out.
It showed on my end that it did, and I sent it to myself and I received it, and that in no way indicates that it goes to anybody else. So I completely, I think as long as people make it in here tonight, that's what we're super happy about. But thank you. It's always good to know what's showing up on everyone else's end.
Hi, Soumya. Hey, Brett.
Hey,
Hi, Natasha. Hi, Bianca.
hello.
Hello. Hi, Brad.
Hi.
We're gonna wait a couple more minutes, make sure everybody gets in, and then we'll start rocking and rolling. Hey, Steve. Jasmine needs a link, Susan.
All right.
I see Tristan over in the attendees list instead of the panelist list. I don't know if you see that.
I personally cannot, but I will ask Natalie to promote him.
He just dropped off that list.
Okay. Hi, Clint. Hi, John.
Hey there, I'm just getting set up here.
Okay.
Christine, John, or Andre is on his way.
All right, he just popped in. Hi, Andre.
Hi.
Good. Well, welcome everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. I so appreciate everyone being here this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get going. Okay. As usual, headphones are recommended. And yes, we're just going to jump right in. So again, as you guys know, I am your facilitator, and Susan Heyman here is my awesome, wonderful co-host. She is also our Zoom manager. I want to acknowledge and welcome John L. Bell from Spousal Strategies. He facilitates the Community Oversight Advisory Committee. I want to welcome Stephen Holt and Erica Warren of Tri Excellence. They facilitate the Executive Steering Committee. And they are all helping us advance the community engagement, the restorative justice, and the economic development opportunities from this work. So this evening, I will be welcoming, you'll be hearing from Brendan Finn, the Director of Urban Mobility Office with ODOT. You'll be hearing from Megan Channel, who is the I-5 Rose Quarter Project Director. And you'll be hearing from Andre Baugh, one of the content experts who is working with the Community Oversight Advisory Committee. We'll also be journaling this evening, so make sure you have your journal or your notebook handy by your side. And I would like to turn the next slide over to Susan as she takes us through the Zoom etiquette.
All right, so just a couple reminders. The raise hand feature, I think everybody's getting pretty acquainted with that. You can find that in your panelist, the participant frame. There's in the panelist tab in particular, there's the raise hand option there, and also at the bottom of your screen. And then we have learned that the side-by-side option is a really great option for people to be able to see other members of the committee at the same time that they are looking at the presentation. So you get to that by the view options. It'll be at the top of your screen, and it's a little drop down, and you can just select the side-by-side view. A couple other quick reminders. This is being live streamed, and it is also being recorded. So just to be aware of that, it is posted on ODOT's YouTube page.
And then we can do that *6 and *9.
Right, yes, thank you. So if you are a member of the public and an attendee, when we come to the public comment section, we'll invite people to raise their hands if they wish to make a comment. So if you use *9, that enables you to raise your hand and to lower your hand. So that'll be important for you. If you're a committee member and you're coming in on the phone, and I don't think we have anybody that way right now, Christine, but that would be the same feature, as well as we would give you an instruction for muting and unmuting yourself. Folks that are attendees are not able to unmute, but if you do wish to make a public comment, then we will unmute you at that time. And that's right up here on screen. The public comment opportunity will be provided here early in the meeting. I think right after the meeting agreements, if I recall, is where that happens. If you would like to make a comment as a member of the public and would like to make a pretty extensive comment, or if you would just rather not necessarily make a comment during the meeting tonight, you're invited to send written comments to the address that is on the screen. You can also submit verbal comments by calling the number on the screen. And in both instances, if you can let us know that these are CAC public comments, that would be very helpful. All the comments we receive will be in the meeting record. And then please make note of that phone number on the screen, the 253-241-0131. If you have any technical difficulties this evening, Ray Outlaw is standing by and would be very happy to help you. Christine, I think that covers all of those details.
Sure does. And we did receive one public comment, and I forwarded that to all of the committee members today. So I would like to do a land acknowledgement. It is my intent to center the inhabitants of the land upon which we live. So I want to respectfully acknowledge the Chinook, the Clackamas, the Clatskanie, the Kalapuya, the Molalla, the Multnomah, the Tillamook, and the Siletz people who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. I pay my personal respects to their elders, both past and present. Thank you for that. All right, our agenda this evening. We want to, of course, go through the agreements like we always do a centering exercise, make sure we're all here, body, mind, and everything. Do the public comment, do a journaling reflection, question. Then we're going to have the listening session response and update. And then we're going to have a report about the DBE OJT program. That is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program and the on-the-job training program. And that will be Andre's presentation. Then we'll do next steps, and then we will adjourn. So working together, again, always we'll be reflecting on these. So listen, believe, and reflect. That's what I ask for all of us to do. Accept non-closure at this moment because this is an ongoing process. Speak your own truth with compassion. Sometimes this is hard work and it gets stuck in our chest or in our throat. Give yourself compassion to be able to speak and breathe at the same time. Always helpful, trust me. Listen to understand, don't listen to respond. We will all have an opportunity to be able to speak. So it's always good to be in the moment of active listening. Value and celebrate each other's experiences. I truly believe having an open heart and an open mind means that we get to explore lots of different possibilities, which is what this group is designed to do. Make space, take space, be concise, and then step back and let others people speak. Bring your best thinking into the room. Really, that's what we need right now. And we'll be attacking the problem and not each other. And I do welcome disagreement and frustration and differences of opinions, because I believe that solutions come out of those places too. So can I have a thumbs up for agreement with the agreements? Thank you. Yes, because that's being redundant. My apologies. All right, my favorite part here is the centering exercise. So I invite you to close your eyes or to look softly downwards. Feel the chair under your legs. Breathe in deeply through your nose and hold for a moment, and then breathe out through your mouth. Feel your hands in your lap. Breathe in deeply through your nose and hold, and out your mouth slowly. Feel your feet on the ground. Breathe in deeply through your nose and hold, and then out your mouth. Slowly open your eyes and breathe normally. Thank you. Welcome to the present. All right, public comments. So we welcome public comments. And Susan, I am going to ask you to take it from here if you don't mind.
No, that will be fine. And as we go to this slide and we just review real quickly what our ground rules are really around public comment, I just want to invite any members of the public who are attendees right now to raise their hand if they do wish to make public comment. I don't see any hands at the moment, but let me just quickly review what the options are here. If you do wish to make public comment, you'll have up to 60 seconds to speak, and we'll put a little clock on the screen that makes that easy for all of us to be able to see that. And again, if you raise your hand, if you wish to make a public comment, then we will call upon you and unmute you at that time. We do ask, if you wish to make public comment, that you have your comments relate to the topics on the agenda today. That would be most helpful. And again, if you wish to send written comment, the address on the screen is where you would do that. And we can also provide the phone number for you to leave a verbal comment if you wish to do that. Christine, I'm not seeing any hands raised. for public comment. So I would believe that perhaps we do not have any this evening.
Okay. That sounds good. We will then move on to our reflection question. So I would like each of us in your journal, in your notebook, to take 2 minutes and reflect on the 2 things that you learned from our last meeting. Please jot them down in your journal and just think back, make some notes. Thank you. And I'll put the timer on. Ten seconds left. Okay. Thank you for that reflection. I really appreciate it. I think it really helps us make sure that we're always connecting back in order to be present so we can move forward. So that's the purpose behind the reflective question. So last month, we spent 2.5 hours listening deeply. I chose that format in order for us to address historic and current harms. Thank you so much for that thoughtful conversation. I so appreciate it. It has had impact. Today, I'm giving ODOT the chance to respond to what they heard. It is their step toward building trust with the historic albino community. To start us off, I would like to introduce to you Brendan Finn, the director of the Urban Mobility Office, in which the I-5 Rose Quarter work is situated. Brendan, you're going to have the floor, and then I'm going to ask Megan Channel to present. Committee members, please jot down your questions, and then we'll have a Q&A with Brendan when he's done. So Brendan, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see you and ask you to take the floor.
Great. Well, thank you, Christine. Well, good evening, everyone. Excuse me. As Christine mentioned, my name is Brendan Finn. I'm the director of ODOT's Urban Mobility Office. I want to start off tonight to thank all of you. I appreciate your time, your passion, and compassion you brought to this important work, your important role in this project. A quick introduction to me. I've been in this role of ODOT for only 4 months. Prior to that, I served as Governor Brown's Transportation Policy Advisor. And previous to that, I spent 19 years at the City of Portland. Most of that as Chief of Staff to Portland City Commissioner Dan Saltzman. During that time at the city, I worked on a number of community initiatives in Albina, going back to 2001 with the Miracles Club. I also worked with the Albina Ministry Alliance, and in 2014, I was involved in the creation of the North-Northeast Housing Strategy. The Urban Mobility Office is a new division within ODOT. It was created by the Oregon Transportation Commission with Director Strickler to oversee large transportation projects and have them reflect an intentional set of values about doing business differently and acting change. And that starts with an acknowledgement with the Rose Quarter Improvement Project. An acknowledgement that the construction of Interstate 5 through Albina was built to benefit some at the sacrifice of our Black community without benefit to our Black community. We acknowledge that. We as ODOT own that. We have to have our actions benefit the Black community impacted by I-5 and its construction. This is the opportunity that we have together. Governor Brown has stated that the project won't move forward without the support of the Black community. And I'd like to emphasize that the Oregon Department of Transportation is in complete alignment with the governor's direction. As an agency, we would also like to state that ODOT supports the vision of the Albina Vision Trust. And we want the Rose Quarter project to align with that vision and our mutually constructed values around restorative justice and recognizing the harmful legacy of past decisions and moving forward decisively to address those harms. Community input and transparent decision-making. Last but not least, for meeting our local, regional, and statewide climate action goals. It's our hope that our commitment to these values will bring Albina Trust back to the table to help ODOT take the correct actions towards righting the wrongs of the past. We must ensure displaced and underserved communities reestablish stable presence and participation in Albina and benefit from the investment of this project. Now, I read that because I'm nervous. And I know what you're thinking right now. Brendan, those are just words. And I hear that. And that you need to see action. Well, tonight you're going to hear about a set of actions that reflect these values. But we can't stop there. That's the beginning. This is the beginning of our journey. We're still in the infancy of this project. Megan will get more into that. Let me be clear, ODOT does not have the answers. We need you. We need you to assist us in crafting what those look like. Again, that's our hope. This is our opportunity. Thank you again for your participation. I guess with that, Christine, do you want me to answer questions?
I would love that. I would love for that. So if you can use the raise your hand, that would be fabulous. Or you can wave us down. Susan and I are gonna be bouncing between the two screens just to make sure that everybody has a chance to be able to ask questions.
I don't see any hands raised right at the moment, Christine. Oh, nope, there are two hands raised. Do you see those? I have Samia and Tristan.
And then John Washington after that.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll keep it brief. I just wanted to note that I read in the previous email before this call that we were going to be adopting the group's charter today. And Brendan, I appreciate your words about this is our opportunity to really, make impactful changes to this project. And I just want to ask if that charter will be up for some discussion before we adopt it, because I think the language of that charter can influence how we are actually able to meaningfully influence the project. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Samia. We will be working on the charter at the next meeting. Yep. Tristan.
Hello. Yeah, so my question is kind of centered around your title and sort of, I guess, ODOT's vision, because I think, I can't remember exactly, but I think your title is something like Director of Urban Mobility or something. And when I hear those words, I think urban mobility, I think people in a city getting, to another part of the city and making sure the city is walkable and bikeable and transit friendly and has good sidewalks and, has good pedestrian infrastructure and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I think when I hear urban mobility, but I want to know what ODOT thinks. Like, what's their sort of ethos around that term?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Tristan. Yeah, one of the things that excited me to pursue this position was that the OTC and Director Strickler, kind of on the direction of the governor as well, are going to change the agency. They want it to be a multimodal agency. They want it to be one that addresses climate change. I mean, I worked a lot on the governor's cap and trade proposal that went to the legislature. Well, almost made it to all parts of the legislature. And I was working a lot on those multimodal aspects, what we were going to invest in to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think the commission saw my work on that, and they want me to start embedding that in how we do business as an agency, and in particular, how we address these mega projects. We're at 15% design for the Rose Quarter project. There's a lot to be done. Megan's going to get more into that because I think we want to know that urban mobility is really important, but how do we do that so we not just impact everybody, but we help everybody and don't harm people? I think I said in the first executive steering committee meeting that, you know, in 1950, there was a whole different approach. It was about moving cars, and there was nothing about climate, and there was nothing about equity. And it was, you know, what we don't want to do now, right? We want to do that completely different. And so the Urban Mobility Office was created to change that. Seems like a wonderful opportunity, but there's so much that the department's done over the course of time that has made it a difficult road ahead. I'm up for that challenge. That's why I'm here. I know it's going to be painful, but I think, Tristan, just so you know, I took this on, and I know at the support of the director and the commission that this office would be increasing multimodal transportation, but also with an emphasis on equity and climate. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I rambled on a little bit.
Thank you, Brendan. I believe John Washington is next, and then Claire after that. John, can you unmute, please? John Washington.
Hey, Brendan, how are you?
John.
Yeah, you sound a little nervous, man. You look like you were running for office or something, man, on campaign. When you were reading up for that thing. Very stoic. I thought you were on TV or something. And I remember the miracle days. But ask me to answer this for me. I'm just curious. I mean, as in that speech, what makes Albina Fund so important to you to get back to the table? And why is it so significant that they did, in your book, in your mind?
Well, good question, John. One of the things I've talked with a lot of members of the board and their executive director, you know, they're the only ones that are, I mean, they have the vision right now. They're the ones that have brought this forward. And I think that that's inspiring to me that they're doing that. I think we want to be a part of that. We want to be there's been a number of projects that have happened in this area that destroyed the community. This was a huge one. So we want to be a part of how we give back. And I know that that's what they're all about, and connecting that community that was destroyed. I was just looking at some pictures that we have of what the community was like before and the construction of it. And, you know, it saddens me, but sorry, I won't get on the soapbox, John, but I think they've stepped up, and I think we need to be there to support what they're doing.
Thank you for that, Brendan.
Absolutely.
Claire, and then Brad, please.
Hey, Brendan. You said in your earlier answer that in the 50s it was all about moving cars, and that going forward it's going to be different. But the primary purpose of this project is reducing congestion, which is about moving cars. So how do you square those two things?
Well, that's a good one. Obviously, the project is a bit about safety, it's a bit about congestion, it's a bit about multimodal, and it's a bit about connecting community. I feel like this project it's in the beginning stages, so we're going to define what it is. The auxiliary lane piece is about safety and it is about congestion. So that's true, but there's many other pieces to this project, and hopefully it can be one that we're all proud of. That's the way that we do a project. So that's the ethos we're trying to bring, to use a word Tristan gave me.
But to my understanding, the congestion piece is the one piece that we have no, like the auxiliary lanes is the one piece that we have no influence over.
Yeah, that's the part that's more embedded in statute as far as what the project is. So that's correct. That's probably and Megan can answer that question probably a little bit more thoroughly than I can. She can do that. You can either do that now, Megan, or do that when you come up to speak. If you want to tackle that now.
Sure, I'm happy to step in, Brendan. And yeah, Claire, I think it's a good question and one worth clarifying. You know, in 2017, when the legislature passed House Bill 2017, Rose Quarter was part of that. And to your point, it is about reducing congestion, improving safety. But with that, we leveraged so many opportunities for the multimodal connections and new community connections. But to directly answer your question, you're right in that we don't have influence over changing the auxiliary lane and shoulders on the I-5 main line. That said, there is some opportunity for discussion on the I-5 main line as it relates to the shoulders. You may have heard us in other venues talking about the opportunity for bus on shoulder. And so that's going to be a significant opportunity for us as we're looking at the improvements that are happening on I-5, where this committee can have some influence around the use of those shoulders. Does bus on shoulder make sense? How does that tie in with broader transit plans and with other projects in the region too?
Thank you so much, Megan. I'm going to ask Brad to step in, and then Christopher, and then Clint.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering if this type of, I'm assuming this project was thought of and moved forward before urban mobility was, it was obviously before your role, but probably before that department even existed. Is this the type of project we would expect to see from urban mobility, or is this like totally different from the type of projects you see the office bringing forward?
Great question, Brad. You're right. I even came to the governor's office after the signing of HB 2017, and I know a lot of work went into that last transportation package. You know, I'm going to look forward because I know that there'll be another one. Our system will continue to need to be changed, modernized, and again, to meet our climate goals is going to be a big, big driver of that. So it's tough to say in retrospect, Brad. You know, I think the Urban Mobility Office would have brought some new dynamics to the conversation, and you know, because of the kind of charge that we have now to think more multimodally, and you know, I do think part of the thinking around demand management that went into that package is one that we can really sink our teeth into is the Urban Mobility Office. So that part's exciting to me. So tough to say, but moving forward, want to work with all of you and others on what improvements or what goes into that next package as we evolve. Good question. Great question.
Thank you, Brendan. Christopher, and then Clint.
Yes, my question is, how is ODOT responding to the city of Portland with the whole commission directing city agencies to not even work with the project at all without the permission of the commission and the sort of skepticism of the city itself? And then as a secondary question, why should we continue to participate when clearly you don't have the major community partner involved in the project. You know, like them or not, the city of Portland is the big player, at least in terms of the local community, in terms of all of that. So I guess that's a two-part question.
Yeah, no, that's right. They are a huge partner. Someone that worked for a transportation commissioner for the city of Portland, and inside that institution for many years. I get it. And I think we're just going to own it. We gotta earn it. We got to do it the right way. That partner's gone. We've been working with them. We hope to get them back. We heard what they said. They said we needed to do things differently. And that's, as I said, I'm a little new. I'm just starting out here. I feel like I have the backing of the commission and the director to do things differently. And so I think if I can prove that to you, if I can prove that to the city, then hopefully they'll come back to the table and be a partner, because we feel like there's lots of opportunities with them to make this project meet some of the goals that we've already talked about. So does that answer you, Zach? Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Very good. So Clint, then Brett, then John Isaacs, then Steve.
Hi, thank you. First, just a quick comment. Megan mentioned buses using the shoulders. I would say that if ODOT is truly in the business of moving people and goods, that bus ought to be in a real lane. And if you want to add lanes to the highway here to move people, it's a bus only lane. So we know that it works in cities. We know it works on other highways throughout the country. So if you're going to spend all this money, at least let us move a fair bit of traffic through there. And when I say traffic, I mean actual human beings. I want to touch on the fact that Christopher mentioned that the city of Portland is not involved anymore in this process. And we know that one of the major reasons that they've stepped away from this collaboration is that the Albina Vision has withdrawn their own representation on any of the committees. And I think that's very important for us to address here. And I would ask Brendan and Megan, with Albina Vision no longer being a participant in this process, the city of Portland no longer participating, why is it that we as committee members should continue being involved in this committee? What is it that you think is our value as you continue to lose partners? And I would ask all of the committee members to ask themselves, what are we doing here if we know that the two most important partners in this project have backed away and absolutely cannot support it in its current iteration?
No, that's fair, Clint. Absolutely. And I just respond to this. We're just starting out. We just started. I think that they're right. They weren't seeing enough, and I don't blame them. So we have to earn it back. And so what we're asking is for you to join us. And we're laying out to you what our values are and how we want to proceed. We hope you can join us. We hope you agree with those values. We really appreciate and cherish your involvement in this. So I don't blame them. We hope to get them back. We know we got to earn it by our deeds, and we would like you to join us in that journey. We hope we can learn from you. We need you. I understand if people feel like they can't participate, but we feel like there's something special to be had here. There's a real opportunity. So that's why we would like you to keep with us, and keep joining us, and keep helping us and advising us. The critical role you're playing.
Thank you. Thank you, Brendan. All right, I have Brett, and then John Isaacs, and then Steve.
Yeah, I think, Brendan, my question is sort of related to something we heard about in our last meeting, the focus groups that were conducted with Indigenous and Black folks. And, a lot of, I was reading over them again recently, and a lot of folks that were in those focus groups expressed a lot of concern and distrust with the project and ODOT and the histories that are going along with that. And so I guess my question is sort of then, having this focus groups being conducted and, OTC and ODOT knowing the results for a while and not doing anything to this project to change it substantially, why is it fair then to ask us to come along on a process when there's sort of this history of non-change, even when ODOT commissions studies and finds, the folks in the communities where you're talking about don't have that support and trust to move forward, and ODOT kind of ignored that in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is 60 years in the making. I mean, before they're able to say this is what happened, this was unfair. So there's a lot that we could probably go through all those times and think about what DOT has done that hasn't been fair to communities and actions that have not been taken, right? That's why we're here. It'd be easy to not be here. It'd be easier not to have these conversations. It would be easier to just keep on doing business the way they've always done business. But that's not how we are, and that's not how we want to be. So we are going to move forward on what we heard. We established this committee that we appreciate you sitting on to hear that and to reflect it and have these tough conversations. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy. I don't think it is. I don't think anybody on our team thinks it's going to be. So we got to own it. Own it 100%, Brett. You're right. Should have had more action. And as of 3 or 4 months ago, since I've been on here, we've kind of set the table. People are frustrated. Absolutely understandable. I am too. So I think that's my answer. Is that I'm looking forward on how we can do this best. I'm and understanding and owning the fact that we've made some big mistakes.
Thank you, Brendan. John Isaacs, Steve, and then John Washington.
Hi, Brendan. John Isaacs with the Portland Business Alliance. Hey, can you just talk a little bit about how this project ties into other projects? And specifically, I'd like to hear how it ties into finally getting tolling on I-5.
Yeah, sure, John. Part of HB 2017, and going back, Brad, to what you were saying, I wasn't in the rooms, but part of the implementation of that part that we see is really exciting is taking this comprehensive approach to how we're addressing mobility needs around the entire region. And that's not just, that means transit, that means bike ped, that means cars, looking at it all. How does our system work in? How does it fit in? How can these projects adapt to that so we can increase mobility? And with the toll program, we've been focused a lot on the equity portions of that. We want to be sure that program is there to do good, not harm, to manage our system correctly, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But this piece, the Rose Quarter project, obviously is seen as one of the biggest bottlenecks on the West Coast. So how do we do that in a way that meets these goals that we have around climate and restorative justice, and how that fits into our bigger system is a huge part to our plan that the OTC has of looking at the entire region and looking at it in a multimodal way.
Thank you, Brendan. Steve, and then John Washington, please. And then Brad.
Yeah, hi, Brendan. These questions are for you and Megan. And so John asked, I sort of independently wanted to understand why tolling hasn't preceded this project. Why we're not tolling right now, and why there aren't, plainly one of the biggest drivers of this whole situation is moving freight on I-5, and why you haven't dedicated a lane to truck traffic. Why don't you just make the whole left lane trucks only for people who are trying to get through Portland? What's up with that? Why don't you make I-5 trucks only, period? No cars, let them go on I-405, I-205. So I don't understand this. Maybe you guys can explain me.
Yeah, we probably need to do a real deep dive on some of those issues regarding Oregon's Constitution and those other things, but I'm not going to hide behind any of that, Steve. I think we just submitted to the federal government how our tolling program. It is something that takes a few years through the NEPA process to set up. We want to make sure we're doing that the right way. Lucinda Broussard, who runs our tolling program, would just tell you that we're moving at light speed. She's overseen some of these programs across the country. So we're committed to it. We think it's critical to how we manage and how we keep the system moving and most optimally, and be able to meet some of our equity objectives and increasing some multimodal investments in different parts of the region.
Thank you, Brendan. I'm going to ask John Washington and then Brad. John, can you unmute?
Yes, Brendan. Hi again.
Hi, John.
You hear, you're taking some pretty good shots, man. And I see you trying to, to angle and position yourself okay, and I get it, and I'm not envious of your position right now. But I am curious, I keep pressing at this reason about trying to understand the more of the significance about what the overall agenda is you're trying to accomplish, and the players that you need to accomplish that. And then of course, how present day times dictate and demand you do something different and a little bit different. And I think that I struggle with the realization that I'm remiss that I don't think you have completely, just because one organization moves away from the table, doesn't mean that that you've hit them all. And I think that I'm still a little bit concerned that, as someone in the district and, and Black and have been a part of Black organizations and as a Black organization and so forth and so on, that reach is not out there far enough, so I think that it's important that you look at the possibility that community is still a lot bigger, but at the same time, is that it is galvanized to some degree, and part of it's still sitting at your table listening to you, and trying. But the question that I'm still having with you is, how can we, what doors of influence are open to you? How do we influence you, this committee, these other organizations? How can we influence this situation in a way that's healthy for us both, that we both benefit from it? What door is open? What's your thoughts about how you're going about doing that and achieving that?
Yeah, great question, John. I probably don't have the best answer because I really want to figure that out. And I know Megan does, and I know the whole team does with you. You're the Community Advisory Committee. We're not here to make the definitions. We know we want to tell you that the door is wide open, that we're at the beginning of this. Yes, Claire, there is some constraints that we're under. There are some sideboards on what we can and can't do. But other than that, we're ready to go. And so if your recommendation, if the committee so desires, we'll make the reach out and tell us who we should be talking to. We're all ears. We're at the beginning of this, and we want to do it right, and we want to do it with your advisement and your counsel. And if we need to be talking to other people, then that's what we need to do. And I think that's what we're committed to doing. So I don't have the answer, John.
But I think that you made it clear that the door is open and that you guys are receptive. And as long as those things are in position, I think that we have a foundation for moving forward on something. To create means that, man, you got to have two willing partners to be able to do that. And sometimes, you know, turning a big machine is harder to turn a bigger machine than it is a small. But as long as the turn is that we have enough space to turn in and to do the things and get the outcomes that we're looking for, then I don't see, personally, I'm eager to get on the ground moving toward that destination. Because all this other stuff is just another stall and another reality. Whatever the outcomes are going to be, I'm saying let's press toward getting those outcomes. Let's make those pathways open and simple as possible to get to them. You know, I don't care what it is. If you got something that you owe our community, you know, let's get serious about, you know, restoring that justice and getting that thing on ground. And let's move to the next plate, you know, because the bottom line is just staying here is just a waste of time. And that stall tactic, spinning, suspending, all those kinds of things. I mean, in our district, we got concerns about our businesses. And a big part of that Broadway corridor and all of that is going to be affected in adverse ways. So there's a few things that we need to make sure that we're getting clear about how we're going to address some of the needs of those things. Because yeah, we know that the community is significant, and we know that, you know, Albina Trust and all of them, that they, you know, they have a plan, and we gotta. But the idea is for us to help you forge the opening, for us to be victorious, or get a win in this. You know, we all get fed the same way. We get something out of it that we need to be able to make it happen. So I appreciate your position, man, and thank you for coming in here and sharing with us and stuff. I know that the questions are being hard on the table, but my reason for sitting here is to look for that way to help you. Because obviously, you know, there's some significant issues that we need, and impediments we need to get beyond. So, but I need to see that opening. Don't just give me a fake door, you know, give me something that truly we can walk into and sit down and go, okay, this is what we think that this should look like. And y'all be real about receiving that information, because I don't want to sit on a bogus committee. You know what I'm saying? If you're saying we're here to advise you, and if you open to listen to what we got to say, then I think we should get on with the business of advising you. Just my thoughts.
No, amen, and thank you for your service to that.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Brendan. Brad, I'm going to ask you to hold on your question, because I want Jasmine and Andrew to be able to ask their question, and then we're going to go into Megan's presentation. So thank you so much for that. So Andrew, then Jasmine.
Hey, excuse my tardiness as well. I was getting having technical difficulties. But I was just curious to ask, I know you mentioned safety is a big priority, and I know there's a lot of, how are you, are you will ensure safety in a culturally specific way by losing certain key partners?
I apologize, Andrew, but I didn't catch all of it. So if you don't mind, I couldn't hear everything, but.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
My bad. So I know safety is always a big goal or key for this project, and it's hopefully it's safety for everyone, everybody, not just the dominant population and culture within Portland and that live within that area. So my question is, how will you all ensure safety in a culturally specific way by losing key partnerships like Albina Vision and other things? So like, what will be you all's approach to really get information to know how to, you know, reinforce safety and a whole holistic, racial, equitable, restorative justice way?
Yeah. Sorry, Andrew, I didn't mean to cut you off. All right. Well, I think I got the gist of it, and you know, I couldn't tell you how important that is to us. And you know, Megan might have some thoughts too, but again, you know, we as I mentioned, I'm not here to tell you I got everything figured out. I don't. I'm here to work with you to do that, and I think we want to present how we might do that, Andrew. And I think we want you to say, nope, that doesn't work. You need to do that a different way. Here's how you should do it. That's what you're there. That's what we're hoping to get from you as our advisors. We want to bring the portions of the project like safety for everyone. But as you said, losing that partner, it's a huge blow to us, right? That was something that we obviously did not want to happen, but we know we got to earn it, as I keep saying, and we'll keep showing up. We'll keep having these conversations. We're done doing business the same way as we've always done it. We're going to have these difficult conversations until we get to a place where we can make it work. But to answer your question, Andrew, I think we want to present some of those things to you and have you tell us whether we're right, doing it right, wrong, or otherwise. So that's my answer to that. But thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Brendan, I would just echo the same. And Andrew, that's exactly why we have this committee. And I think about the local streets as an example for safety. You as our community members are the primary users of those streets. What's the best way to design them so that they are safe for all users, whether you're on foot, taking the bus, driving on a bike. So what are the ways in which we can sort of define the space of the roadway? What are the ways in which we can think about illumination of the roadway? What are the ways that we can think about how the roadways tie into the existing and future neighborhoods? Those are all questions that we have that I'm really looking forward to really digging in with this group on to answer.
Thank you, Megan. Jasmine.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Brendan, for being here and answering our questions.
Jasmine, you need to unmute again. Try that again.
I'm not sure where I dropped off, but I was basically saying if anybody, whether it's Brendan or Megan or maybe April, could answer this question. And maybe this also relates to the significance of this project. Could you talk more about the other elements of the I-5 improvement project? Because it's not just the highway, right? Like it's also, we talked about highway covers, we talked about improvements to the streets and to the roadways, like making more bike lanes, or there's also the Clackamas bicycle pedestrian crossing that's a part of this project. So there's a lot of elements to the I-5 project that I don't think we haven't really touched on them. And then also, I brought this up before, the I-5 project is just one part of a larger project, the Green Loop project. And if you could talk more about what that project is and all of the improvements that are to come in Portland, maybe that would help sort of give a better understanding of this project as a whole for the community. Because personally, I know that I had to find out all about the Green Loop on my own. So if somebody could speak more to that, that would be great.
No, thanks, Jasmine. And that part of that's perfect segue over to Megan for her presentation. And then I'll tackle a little bit of that kind of systematic approach in looking at the suite of projects that we have. Some have been already kind of blessed and started in earnest. Others are just in the planning stages now, or picking up from old planning stages, so to speak, for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project. So their mobility office, I spoke a little bit about it. Some of the projects that we're charged with are the Rose Quarter Improvement Project, the Interstate Bridge Project. Again, to talk about how those two relate, coordinate, meet all that multimodal and needs that we're going to have for our community. And then the I-205 improvement project and Abernathy Bridge, another critical project for seismic resiliency purposes. That also is part of leads into the congestion pricing program, which we started. I started off when I was at the city. I served as the City of Portland's representative on what was called the Value Pricing Committee. And our biggest concern that we had was to make sure that we were building a system that was, using demand management techniques, but was also going to take revenue that was generated and putting it back into the system to meet the needs of all people in our community, and in particular those of low income and communities of color that haven't had those access before. So that's kind of like the umbrella of what our office is working on, and some of the things that I mentioned earlier to Brad of our approach to this new office. So we'll come back. I got some fun graphics and things I can show to you real quick, maybe next meeting, to show you what we're doing and how all these projects relate into each other. They're all critical pieces to the puzzle of mobility in this region that we're working on. But with that, I know you asked about specifics around the project, and we're probably long overdue to give you those. So I know Megan is going to talk a bit about those in her presentation. So Christine, you wanted me to take a couple more? Or?
No, I think we really need to go ahead and tee up Megan.
Can I just make an ending comment?
Yes, you may.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming. We want skepticism. We want criticism. We want you to hold our feet to the fire. We're going to be here. We're going to keep showing up. That's our office motto. And we're doing things differently. And again, we know we got to earn it. Can't be just talk. It's got to be action. So again, we want to make sure they're the right actions, and we appreciate you advising them on it. So with that, again, thank you for your service. I'll sign off.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Brendan. And thank you for your questions. Jasmine, you're going to get so much information at the next meeting. We're going into Design 201 at the next meeting. So hang in there. I ask you to just hang in there. So I'm going to share my.
Sorry, there's a reason I keep asking about it. It's because I feel like because this is such a large project, this is why when we try to ask about changes or any adjustments, we can't do anything about it because there's this very massive redevelopment project across the whole city and nobody's talking about it. And I think that there should be more transparency as it relates to that. And so that's why I keep bringing it up. And when I say like I had to find out about it on my own, I feel like that was information that I should have had available and I wasn't given. And that makes me feel like part of my role on this committee is insignificant because all of this stuff has already been established and finalized and planned out. So I'm asking for the sake of transparency so that more people on the committee know what this is part of one cog in a greater machine.
That's really helpful. I really appreciate you explaining that and making it all fit together. So yes, we will address that and ensure that we bring people in through other parts of the city and understand the projects and how they all fit together. So thank you so much, Jasmine. I really appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. I'm teeing up Megan Channel. She's the director of the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project. So Megan, here's your slide and here you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you to all of the members. I just want to, thank you again for the great discussion that we had at last month's meeting at the listening session. It was empowering to hear all of your candid feedback, and I know it wasn't easy to provide that feedback to us, but what I want you to know is that we listened and we're continuing to listen, and really committed to continuing to learn from your experiences. And as Brendan said, hold us accountable, hold our feet to the fire. That's exactly why we're here. So thank you for continuing to show up with us. The main reason that I'm here right now is that I wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to loop back with you on what we heard from the listening session last month, and namely to make sure that we've captured your comments, and like let me know if we missed something, because again, we want to make sure that we are accurately and appropriately taking in what we're hearing and carrying that forward in the project process. So the slide that Christine pulled up here on the screen summarizes the key themes of what we heard. So to start, I know that we heard from several of you about the desire of rescoping or even canceling the project. And with that, I think a primary overarching concern, and I've heard it again in a number of questioning here tonight, is that concern around the committee not having an opportunity to influence the outcome of this project. And so to me, like that, I'm sure it's frustrating for you to continue asking that question, but I have to say that it is really important for us to hear that, because the key takeaway for me is that clearly, like, we're not doing a good job communicating to you that we really don't know all of the answers. We're not doing a good job communicating to you, as Jasmine pointed out, kind of what those different project elements are, and that we need your help in shaping what they will look like, and that we honestly need you and the community to work through these design decisions with us. So that's something that we will own, that I own, and as we move forward can do better in communicating with you. And so, while the design concepts are defined, again, I don't know the details of the project. We're at 15% design. That means there's 85% to go, and there's really a lot of opportunity on shape of the project, what it will be, but really also how it gets built. And so, what I can tell you is that we are here, as we talked about in some of the questions that Brendan was answering, we are here because of the need to address congestion and safety for all users of the system. And with this brings that significant opportunity to reinvest in the Albina community and the Albina neighborhood. And, the need for the project isn't going away. We know that this portion of I-5 is the top bottleneck in the state. We know that it has the highest crash rate on an urban interstate. And the proposed auxiliary lanes and shoulders that are really the one thing that we know are defined in there, and there is not opportunity to influence. They're intended to reduce the congestion, provide more time and space for drivers, and it'll help reduce frequent crashes. But with those improvements, and in order to do those improvements, the project includes so much more than that. And I'll get to that in a second. But the project itself, as we look forward, we also need to make sure that we're developing the project in a way that's not exacerbating the historic harm that was done when we as ODOT originally built I-5. So we really need to be intentional in how we're building and designing the project that minimizes harm and maximizes that community benefit. So again, we know that we're doing the auxiliary lanes and the shoulders. There's some opportunity on the highway itself. What can those shoulders be best utilized for? I mentioned bus on shoulder earlier, and Clint will take down your comment around kind of the other opportunities as well. But we know that we're doing highway covers. Right now, the design concept is that they are two separate covers, but that's just a concept and an assumption. And so moving forward, can the shape and the size of those highway covers be different? Can they be one highway cover that is connected? Should they remain as two? What's going to be put on top of the highway covers? How do the roadway connections cross over the highway covers to help restore some community connections that were lost when I-5 was constructed? Those are the types of things that this group has has active influence over and shaping the outcomes for the project, and really shaping the outcomes then for the community, and how this project can leverage and catalyze future development opportunities. We know that we're gonna focus on neighborhood streets in the area. In response to Andrew's question earlier, how are those designed? How do we make sure that they are walkable? How do we make sure that they are providing easy access to transit, that they are safe for all of the users? We as ODOT don't want to presume how people are using the street or want to use the street. And so that's why you're here. Help us shape what those streets will look like. We know that the project will also include some new crossings over I-5. Jasmine, you mentioned the Clackamas pedestrian and bicycle bridge. How will that connect into the community? And to your point, I actually have a very similar question as you do. How does that link in with the Green Loop project? So those are all really important questions and conversations to be had. And I know that as Christine promised, at our next meeting, we'll be picking up again, and our design team will be back to dig into that. But I want to frame that we're really early. And again, I know I say we're early, but this project has been going on for decades. So how do you reconcile those two? But we're early in the design process, and so I hope that you remain with us in helping us work through these important decisions. And again, one of the main things that we heard from the listening session was about acknowledging past harms. As you heard from Brendan, we as an agency, as ODOT, acknowledge the role that we played and the harm that caused with the prior transportation investments and what they had on the Black community here in Portland with the construction of I-5. And so your role, I see your role as a CAC as important in helping us shape how we move forward. So again, that we ensure that we're not exacerbating those harms of the past, and help us defining the actions that we can take as we move forward. I also heard the importance of engaging with the historic Albina community early and often throughout our process, and ensuring that this is done in an open and a public way, and really in a way that the public and you as a committee can hold us accountable. And what I say to that is absolutely, we agree. And in the next slide, I'll share an example of something that we're putting together. We're calling it a community accountability matrix. That'll be a live document on the website that will capture the comments that we hear and how we're responding to those. So hang tight for a second and we'll get to that example. At the listening session, also heard the importance of reinvestment in the community, and specifically reinvestment in the community that provides economic opportunities for the historically harmed communities. I know that I heard a lot of suggestions around job development, job opportunities, land ownership, suggestions around land banking, business development and support, really with the intended purpose, all to support wealth generation. And then I also heard with this reinvestment that seeing the opportunity and the need to provide space to rebuild a sense of community that really honors the history of this area, and again provides those economic opportunities that allows the communities that were displaced to return. And so again, these I don't have answers to these, but these are important topics that we as a committee and also as an executive steering committee are going to be tackling in how we move this project forward to support those broader efforts as well. At the listening session, one of the key things that I heard as well was about the importance of prioritizing public health, and specifically around Harriet Tubman Middle School and the students and staff there. Again, yes, we agree with you. We want to ensure that this project is providing a benefit to the students at Harriet Tubman Middle School. And so, we've started some initial conversations with Portland Public Schools. We're going to be continuing to work with you. But one thing, a few things that we do know is that the project will be building or has proposed to build a sound wall that would be between I-5 and Harriet Tubman Middle School. And I say proposed because it will actually be up to Portland Public Schools to decide whether they want the sound wall. But what we do know is that the sound wall, should it be built, would reduce noise levels below existing conditions today. So the sound levels would actually be lower in the future with the project than they are today to provide that benefit to the school. We also learned through our environmental peer review process that we did, which brought in national technical experts on air quality, noise, and greenhouse gas emissions, that there's some new and emerging opportunities and design techniques for sound walls that can also have a benefit for reducing air pollutants. And so as we get into design, I'm super excited to learn about that and what we have the opportunity to do here for that site. And then thirdly, for Harriet Tubman Middle School, the project does include a retaining wall on I-5, and that again, it's between I-5 and the Harriet Tubman slope up to the middle school. And by building that retaining wall, it actually helps stabilize that slope, and so it makes the ground more solid and more solid for the school site. So those are some initial benefits that we know. And again, that's why we have this committee. Help us determine what some of the needs are and how we can move forward in providing more benefit. Another thing that we learned and kind of heard through the listening session was obviously the importance of climate action and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This is again something that through the Urban Mobility Office with Rose Quarter and other projects that we have that Brendan was referring to, how do we look at this and take that systematic approach to make sure that our actions as an Urban Mobility Office are helping to meet and achieve our state and regional and city climate action goals. So we'll be working through that as well. Also heard from this group the importance for safety, and Andrew, you asked that again in your question this evening. Absolutely, and what I heard in particular in those comments, is a focus on safety as it relates to all users, but also as it relates to a focus on serious injury or fatal crashes, and so we'll continue to bring that focus to the project. We also heard about the importance of the need to provide social and community services and resources such as mental health services, education, and mentorship. I think this goes a bit along with the reinvestment opportunities for the community. What are the partnerships that we'll need to have? Who are the people that we should be talking to leverage those opportunities as part of the project? And I look forward to learning more from you on how we can do that. Then another thing that I heard was a desire for different alternatives for the highway changes. And I think we covered this a little bit earlier. And Steve, you asked the question about implementing tolling on I-5. Yes, it's an important tool and opportunity for us to manage demand on the system. And taken holistically, it's going to take everything to address our urban mobility needs. The Rose Quarter project, the toll program, investments in bicycle and pedestrian and transit. So all of the above. And then lastly, I would say that one of the main things that I heard from the listening session was to make sure that we're constructing a project that has community benefits. And absolutely, some of the key benefits that we can start talking about now are the highway covers, that they're going to provide the benefit of sort of reconnecting the community over I-5, reducing that physical and visual barrier of I-5, and it's going to be done through your guidance and through your input. We'll have improved safety in this area, not only on I-5, but in the way that I-5 connects to the local street system. I talked about some of the benefits at Harriet Tubman Middle School. There's obviously more to learn and more to discuss around that. We know through some of the technical analyses that were done for the environmental process, specifically air quality and greenhouse gas, that the project will actually have an improvement on reducing emissions as compared to not building the project. You'll be hearing right after I'm done here from Andre about some of the economic opportunities, and albeit economic opportunities that are near term during construction, but it is a step in ODOT doing business differently, and how those economic opportunities can help leverage and again support longer term wealth generation and sort of capacity building and pipeline building for our trades. And then again, there's other community benefits that we don't know about yet, and that's exactly why you're here. So I'll end this slide with, we look forward to working with you to help us identify again what the community needs and benefits can be through this. So I'll pause, well, actually, okay, I'll go to the accountability matrix and then I will pause. Thanks, Christine. So this is the community accountability matrix that I mentioned earlier, and it's really coming out from your feedback at the listening session. And how this is intended, it's a snapshot, by no means complete, but an example sort of structure of what we're going to be putting up as a living document on the website to track what are we hearing, and what are we doing about it? What's our timeline, and who's really leading that effort? And what's the status? Is it in progress? Do we still need to talk about it? Has it been completed? So this will be a way for us to continue to track all the comments that are coming in from this committee, and anyone can go onto the website and track the status at any given time. So I will pause there. So with maybe two key questions back to the group. Did we miss anything? Did I miss anything on what we heard? And then secondly, for the accountability matrix, does that resonate with you? Is that the right type of information that we could include to track? So with that, happy to answer questions and look forward to your feedback.
Any questions? Megan, oh, Bob, I see a question from Bob, and then Clint.
Yes, Megan and Brendan. You know, we talked about, you know, I'm in construction, so that's what I focus on quite a bit, and apprenticeships and things like that. I guess my question is, or my statement first is that if I'm correct, Hamilton Sunt was selected as a general contractor for this project a week or so ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, Bob, that is correct. We issued last week a notice of intent to award to the Hamilton Sunt joint venture to be the CMGC, the construction management general contractor for the project.
Well, I guess my also statement, they really don't have that great of a reputation, and it took them 2 or 3 times to get the Morrison Bridge done correctly. So, you know, Kiewit, I think, was also right in the running there. I'm just wondering why Hamilton was selected over Kiewit, because Kiewit has a better reputation as working with the trades and working with the communities, you know, to help with apprenticeships and, you know, long-term wealth building, as we've been talking about.
Yeah, Bob, I would love to be able to sort of share all of the details. That said, because it's a notice of intent to award, we're still in the open kind of procurement and negotiation process. But that said, I hear you, but I would love to come back when we are done with the procurement process to answer that question for you, if that's okay. Do you mind if I put that on a parking lot / bike rack and come back? Okay.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Clint, and then Christopher.
Yeah, taking a look at that list that you had up about what ODOT is going to do in the future, it seems honestly very much just like talking points and empty platitudes. And I really wonder, like, one, our committee is here. We don't have a charter. We're essentially in like a listening session for, you know, the first how many months of our committee's existence. We have no actual power. Nothing's been granted to us to actually shape anything other than having a platform to give our comments on. And that list, frankly, just seems like a list of things that we already gave you from the beginning. And at this point, we'd like to see what those things are. You know, the only thing that I heard of any substance was a larger retaining wall. And you're saying that the like interactions with Portland Public Schools are important, but they asked you to do a full environmental review and you refused to do it. So you've got a list, you say that you're going to do these things. We already know that you haven't been doing them. And we gave this list to you essentially, you know, from the very beginning. And I think we want to see some actual, like, real things rather than just a list that, you know, honestly, we're going to look at again next month, and the list is going to be the same. You're going to listen to some folks, you're going to engage with some folks, you promise to explore these things. We want to see it. Like, we want to see some actual firm plans, you know, before we continue to essentially, what I feel like is almost waste our time, as we haven't even gotten to the point where we have an idea of what we're supposed to be doing here. So how do you propose, like, moving forward, that we actually get some like real firm things that we can discuss rather than us just listening to this list of promises that you're going to give us?
Yeah, Clint, I guess I hear you, and I hear the frustration there, and I think we can definitely own that we haven't moved fast enough in action, and so that's a key takeaway for how we start to do business differently, and take swifter action. You know, I think we intentionally shifted to have a listening session to better understand the needs of this committee. That said, I agree. We need to get to the charter conversation and around sort of what's the role and the influence. So I hear your frustration, and I hope that you'll sort of stay on board, because we are getting to the action, and next month is really, I think, going to be a critical and pivotal point in starting to get into some of the design work.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Clint. Christopher?
Yes, I'm trying to find out. I mean, I guess hearing all this, I echo a lot of what Clint was just saying. One of my concerns, again, I'll raise it again. I don't want to be window dressing for a project that gets rammed through. And I want to know if ODOT can commit to not using this committee as an excuse for community involvement, or as to say, oh, we are involving the community, when you're just using us to listen, to promise things in the future. Again, I use the example in our earlier meetings, you know, you guys have already decided what house to build, how big it is, and we're just deciding what colored paint it is on the side, and then you're going to tell the neighbors that we were involved in the decision to build the house. I wonder, can ODOT commit to not actually referencing us until we actually have a mission and actually have a list of things that we're actually advising?
Yeah, Chris, I agree with you. I do not want this committee to be just a stamp. I want the candid feedback. I want this group and this community to be influencing the project. We don't have the answers. I don't have the answers. I don't presume to have the answers. That is why you're here. And so I sense the anxiousness to really get going in those conversations. I'm right there with you, but Christopher, you have my personal commitment that this will not just be a rubber stamp committee. We really are here for that intentional engagement and intentional approach to having you shape what happens in the future.
You know, then I think we need to switch this to less of a top-down organizationally led committee to a committee-led committee. So maybe we need to have our own decisions about what the agenda is going to be, who's going to be presenting, and what we're going to discuss. Because right now we just show up, we listen. It's great. I don't deny that the individual people are participating in good faith. That's not a question. So please don't take that as a personal comment. I know you have your own role to fill, but it just, you know, this doesn't seem to be achieving much or a useful use of anyone's time, except for ODOT to be able to say, we are involving the community.
Well, I invite us to realize that we are breaking new ground here, right? This is new work that we're doing, and I keep inviting us to step into this. Samya, you're going to be the last person to comment because I really want to give Andre as much time as possible. And Christopher, I acknowledge what you just said in terms of creating the agenda. So somehow I'll be glad, I will pledge to work with you guys to create the agenda that you want. So I want you to know that I heard that, and that I'll be able to switch that up and to work with you and try and meld both sides together to get exactly what you want. Samya.
Thank you. I'm sorry to take the last space to speak. I just wanted to ask a question that's also related to the last few comments. And I think we all are participating in good faith, you know, like we really want to be able to work together for a good solution. And it's just a question of what is that good solution, and is it authentically being embraced by ODOT as a process that we can actually work together rather than kind of rubber stamping stuff. And to that end, I'm curious if you can speak to the comments that you received from Albina Vision Trust when they decided to withdraw, because at least for me, I just sort of read about it and I was like, oh, they're talking about how they don't feel that ODOT is willing to work to make meaningful changes to the project in order to meet some of those goals that were shared. So I wanted to know if you had anything to relate on that point.
Yeah, I can share my perspective, and Brendan, if you want to step back in here, I know you've had some conversations too, but you know, what I'd say is I think a lot of the frustration that you heard probably just in the prior comments are similar around we haven't taken action fast enough, that we've been too slow in implementing things, you know, and in particular, conversations around the design of the highway cover. And so that's something that we're committed to re-engaging. We're under contract with ZGF to do an independent assessment of the highway covers, work with the community to define options for the highway covers. So that action is to come. And I really do believe that it's going to be through our actions that we're going to re-earn that trust, or earn the trust, not even re-earn, but earn the trust of not only Albina Vision Trust, but the community and I think our CAC members here as well. So I look forward to getting to work and starting to kind of walk the talk instead of just talking. So I hear you, and I'm excited to start working with you all.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm sorry to make us keep going, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to ask that Andre Baugh step forward. He has been working as an expert, a content expert with a Community Oversight Advisory Committee, along with Amber Ontiveros and John L. Bell. And you're going to spend the next hour, Andre, unfortunately not 75 minutes, being able to hear what these guys have been doing for that have been doing for the last year and a half. So Andre, tell me when to advance the slides, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christine. Again, my name's Andre Baugh. My role in this project is DBE OJT Workforce lead for the owner's rep team. Before we get started, I'm going to switch hats and just address a couple of questions and issues that came out in listening here. First, the green loop. In a prior life, I was the chair of the Planning Sustainability Commission for 10 years and helped develop what's called the comp plan, comprehensive plan, Portland plan, and embedded in those plans is a transportation system plan, bike plan, pedestrian plan, the green loop. And so, and involved in that is called 2035, which is really a kind of a downtown plan. And inside of that is a west plan. And that this Rose Quarter is inside of that. I will have Christine send you a bunch of links, but the city of Portland has done a tremendous amount of planning around this area and looking at the vision for, in just terms of zoning, the green loop, pedestrian bikes and things. The Albina plan is essentially laid on top of that and is going to look at what is the benefit really for the African-American community, and that's their plan. As you start to meld all those, that's how this project how does it fit in? And it's not, that is not the clarity we have right now as we move forward. In terms of specific design, someone asked about cultural safety. Early on in this project, we talked about equity in design, and we are implementing equity in design. And what that means is when you think about safety, when you think about communities of color, it is proven that communities of color think about safety differently than other communities. And so how do we design a project that brings people of color, their perspective to a design that traditionally is done by the majority and, comes out and you see it and you drive on it or walk on it or whatever. How do we bring that other perspective? How do we involve that and make sure that maybe the lighting's a little different, because lighting for people of color is very important for safety where it may not be for other cultures. And so those are things that we've embedded in our design. We're going to be doing that going throughout the project. And that's just an internal process. So I just wanted to say that some of the things that you've talked about are ODOT has actually started early in terms of equity and looking at this project and how do we embed it in the design process, the construction process, and throughout the project. So I'll leave it there. I'll get to this, and I know I've only got about 40 minutes to get done, so I will be talking fast. Again, we're talking about the DBE, which is Disadvantaged Business Enterprise and Workforce. This is just an outline of the program. The committee, there's a committee very similar to you that oversees this DBE OJT. They've been on working for about a year, and let's say a half. So we're going to talk about the program, the committee, the oversight committee, and advisory, community input into specifications. So how that input went into developing the specifications for the contractor that ODOT went through a selection process, the goals of the project, and the project schedule of kind of how that lays out today. What I want to point out is the DBE OJT program, when you talk about wealth and you talk about African Americans, this is the first dollar. This is the first dollar the community will see into delivering on a promise that ODOT's going to do things differently. So it's not the last dollar. I would say you're more talking about the last dollar and the continuing dollars, but this is the first dollar. The DBE program is a federally funded program level to level the playing field for DBE contractors. DBEs are minority contractors and women-owned businesses that are considered disadvantaged. DBE contracts have goals. They create opportunities for DBEs to get work. The contractor selected is this is a alternative bid process. So it's not the lowest bid. This is based on what they call qualifications. And that's a construction manager, general contractor. And this contract complies with the DBE requirements. What it means is the contractor can select DBE contractors through alternative methods. They don't have to take the lowest price. ODOT's required to monitor the contractor for compliance to the DBE goals. And we have a community oversight committee that's going to oversee the compliance and assist ODOT in that compliance. Next slide. The workforce program is about workforce. This is about the people you will see out there doing the work, and on-the-job training is about apprenticeship. The program is to maximize the opportunities, hire from the local communities to work on the project. Apprenticeship hours, we have goals around apprenticeship hours for the prime and the subcontractors. Reporting requirements monthly, we're going to monitor the project. Penalties for non-compliance, again, that's money to the contractor that we could take away. And most importantly, we have community members, what we call the CAC, that Amber and I lead this group, similar to Christine, and they provide oversight. But more importantly, what they did first is what you as a group, the CAC, are being asked to do. They provided input. And it's hard to see the input. You know, you provide a lot of input, but you don't see action. Well, now they get the action because they did that for a year and a half. Now they're going to be oversight of a contractor to see how that works. The Community Oversight Committee role, and here's their role. It's first made up of DBE trade organization, workforce organizations, pre-apprenticeship programs, DBE contractors, and community leaders. So we have, next slide. They're experts in the field, input into the DBE workforce specifications and utilization of businesses. They work with community members. They provide an oversight role that supports the ODOT monitoring. They're going to review reports monthly. So they're actually going to have to review reports, see if contractors are providing non-performance and provide help or recommendations of how to correct contractors' performance. And they're going to flag issues related to wealth generation. This is about wealth generation. How do we get money into the African-American community? So they're going to provide recommendations to ODOT and the contractor around that, how to do better. I just want to give you key points of their charter. Building the capacity of the minority businesses for current, but more importantly for the future projects. Yeah, you get a contract today, you get work, but what about the future? So how do we build that capacity for minority businesses and African-American businesses? Building capacity in local underrepresented populations and to meet the local construction workforce needs. What that means is this committee wants to hire African-Americans from the community and other minorities and females to work on this project. And I'll tell you how that manifests itself in a couple slides. Furthering the minority business expertise to be successful on projects. So if you're around construction, you know that minority businesses sometimes fail because contractors don't support them. The idea here is they wanted to make sure every business, the DBEs, succeeded. And they wanted to increase the skills of underrepresented populations in the construction trade. So to bring apprentices in, get them trained, have them graduate. If you're a graduate journey electrician, you can almost go work anywhere, and that's success. That's a career to make, a good living and live in the city and have benefits, have healthcare, put your kids to school and college if that's what they want to do, and own a house. So that's the opportunity here for this project. Next slide. The community input. So these are the organizations that were consulted. I'm not going to read them all off. You can read them, but they provided us advice. We went to them and said, what would you like to see around the specification? We're going to set a goal for DBE participation. We're going to set goals for apprenticeship. We're going to set up goals for the amount of minorities and females that participate on the project. The type of contractors, do you want small, large? We asked a lot of questions and did a lot of listening around what they thought. And we received a lot of input around what each of these organizations thought the contractor should achieve on this project if it was built. Next slide. The key takeaways were transparency and accountability. Many of the things that you are saying today, they wanted to monitor the project. They wanted the prime contractor is that CMGC that I talked about before. They wanted to make sure there was monitoring and compliance. They wanted to make sure that they met the goals. That's key, that they used local contractors. There's multiple subcontracting opportunities, that there's not one contractor, that there's multiple, maybe 100 contract opportunities, priming opportunities, that minority contractors aren't held to the bottom, but are provided significant opportunities to be primes in of themselves and create wealth. That's how you create wealth, you grow. They wanted to be mentored, provide technical assistance and networking so that they can be successful, so they can be supported, and they wanted to be paid. That was a big thing that we heard, was paying. And honestly, doing business, ODOT doing business differently. If you're in the contracting world, ODOT doesn't have that great a reputation relative to the city of Portland. So we're changing the way ODOT's going to do business and pay better and pay faster and do those things. So next slide. So these are the goals. I'm going to kind of walk through these. The goal range in the RFP that the contractor was selected against is 18 to 22%. That may not sound like a lot, but I will tell you this. If you, in Portland, if you're not 20% on a DBE goal, you're not in the ballpark. And for ODOT, that is a significant issue of way of doing business differently. We had a community say, you got to be in the 20% range or we're just not going to be happy. And ODOT got to 18, 20%. And keep in mind, this is through some regulations. ODOT had to go through a DBE calculation, which I won't get into, to say it's feasible to get to 18, 22%. So we're going to have a 20% apprenticeship goal. So 20% of every trade, except for the operating engineers, will have apprentices. That's a way to bring people from the community, have them trained and graduate and get to a journey level. And then we've got targets for minority male at 25% and 14% for female. That's 40% of the population will be a minority or a female. That's significant in Portland. That's at the top of the heap. If you looked at Multnomah County, the city of Portland, the port, that's right there. That's up with Multnomah County. That's probably at the top, and that's just right up under there. It's above the city of Portland goals that you would see on a city of Portland project. So these are significant goals. And yeah, it says aspirational. The CAC sees them as goals. And so those are the things that we're trying to achieve on this project and are going to hold accountable for our contractor. Next slide. Specification highlights the things that community wanted to see. They wanted to see a mentor protege program, bring in these mini prime CMGCs for 3 to 10 for a milestone up to 10 years. They want to grow small companies to large. And what my experience is, when you hire a minority contractor, they hire people from their own community, and they can grow. They want an acceptable worksite program. If you're around construction, you hear about harassment, discrimination, and what this is about saying, no, we want no harassment and we want no discrimination. We do not want to have that in a workplace. And that seems common sense, but in the construction industry, it really is cutting edge. We want somebody, a diversity coordinator, with significant responsibility to push from the inside, not also push from the outside, but push from the inside to make sure the contractor's doing these things. And lastly, technical assistance, provide and support people, not only subcontractors, but also technical assistance around workforce to make sure that people can get to the job, they have the right equipment, and they're supported in their training. Next slide. That we're tracking and reporting the DBE workforce and subcontracting, that the contractor has a plan to increase opportunities for DBEs, that the contractor is going to generate a wide selection of opportunities. It's a big project. There's an opportunity to have a lot of subcontracting opportunities. So let's make sure we do that. Generate wealth. How do we generate wealth? We get contractors larger contracts. We do those things to generate wealth. We get people from apprentices to graduate to Journey, and we hire them from the local community. We also look at, it includes specifics around DBE and subcontracted in minority communities. So drilling down and just not saying DBEs, but talking about specific DBEs and recruiting from the minority community. Again, how do we draw from that minority community, get them on the contracts? Because ODOT doesn't hire, it's the contractor that hires. Next slide. This is a project schedule. We're going to onboard a CMGC late summer, early fall in 2020. We're going to establish some design concepts, spring of 21, redefine design solutions in the winter of 22, and construction theoretically starts in 2021. And but the dollars to the DBN workforce, late 21, 22, as the contractor comes aboard and hires people. That's the end of my deal, and I did that pretty quickly to give a little bit of time. But if there's nothing else I would say to you is that there was an opportunity for the COAC, that's the group, to come together, have ODOT listen to the community in a broad sense and to specific individuals, and take that back and put it into a very stringent DBE program. The DBE program historically has been around since, I'd say, the mid 70s. It hasn't changed. It is the same across the United States. Every state has a DBE plan. Every state sets almost a DBE goal. It is up to the agency of how they utilize that goal. And ODOT has not changed their DBE in terms of really taking community input and starting to change. And that's different for ODOT. It's different for them to have community members telling a Department of Justice, here's how we're going to do construction. And here's the goals we want to have. That's different, and it takes time. I got to tell you, it just takes time, and it is frustrating. So questions?
I have a question, Andre. How much money do you expect that first dollar to be into the community?
Well, the DBE goal is 18 to 22%. Let's just round it to 20%. You've got $500 million project. That's $100 million. That's potential, well, that would go to the DBE community. And that's not counting the workforce. The workforce dollars are separate. An average wage out on a construction project, because they're probably is around $30 to $33 an hour before fringe benefits, that being healthcare and retirement and other things.
Thank you, Andre. So Bob and then John Washington. Bob, go ahead.
Andre, I want to say that that was a good presentation. And we were in a meeting yesterday at Multnomah County, I believe, or
Yep.
Tuesday. And so I just want to say to everybody here that what he laid out, what Andre laid out, works. Multnomah County, we've been involved with 2 projects there, and the courthouse is the latest one. These goals were met. I mean, I talked to apprentices in our trade that started out, from disadvantaged communities, and they're either getting very close to becoming journeymen, or some of them have already become journeymen, and they are going to have a career now that, as Andre said, they can go work anywhere, and they are going to create wealth. And I mean, these jobs, these careers, make good money. So what he's laid out is really good, and I just want to reinforce the fact that by adhering to what he just taught, these things work. So thank you very much, Andre, and thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Sure.
Thank you so much for that. John Washington.
No, I've chosen to take time to listen to things because there were some things that triggered me to take that time to listen. And a couple of things that a couple of the members kept asking you or saying that, they're receiving a lot of rhetoric and things like that. And why don't we have certain things in place before we go in there? What are we, all that? So I chose to want to listen for if I could find that in this process. And there are ways that I have discovered that. I mean, part of my specialty is nonverbal communication and a few other things, but I listen to words that are used in a process. And I hear words like, well, we don't quite know how to handle that, or we don't quite understand how that works, and we will. And that's a thing called suspending. And that's a process and a method used by companies and organizations to stall tactic, certain kinds of words. But I was just listening to this brother's conversation just now about this. And, as a Black male, I like to believe that I'm unapologetically Black. And I say that when I say is that it's important for me to begin to look at my people, and not so much that we couple to a whole lot of other things, like Black and brown, or why can't we be part of Native Americans and this and that. But somehow or another, whenever we stand to present who we are, we always have to be coupled with something. And so that's minority when we think about minority. But what triggers this thought for me when I think about who is the lowest on the ladder to benefit any of these opportunities is the Black male. And this has been the whole conversation we've been having all along, everywhere we go, is the issue is the Black male is at the bottom of the rung and at the top of the heap on every dysfunctional reality that we have in our society. So at this point in time, we figured, well, maybe it's time for us to begin to address that. But then we throw the word minority in there, okay? And that just opens the bucket up for a whole lot of other people. So what triggers me for this is when I start hearing minority and or women-owned businesses. Nowhere in there that I feel included. Nowhere that it was a definitive that said to me that you were making sure that I rose through the heat in these kinds of things. That somehow you specifically stated that Black male business, Black in business, Black male this. Like instead we have minority. We're coupled with something, okay? And then women get the bigger billing, and on the billing, women-owned businesses. But we all know that most of the time that means white women, So I'm a little bit confused as to how you framing this, okay? Who are you really trying to help benefit? Who's really benefiting from this? Because sometimes it's just simply in the messaging. It's how we package something. Okay, because if I was somebody looking for a business to hire and I read minority and women-owned businesses, a Black male would be the last thing I would think about. So I'm just bringing this to your consciousness because I'm sitting here just listening to this, and I'm listening to this pig get dressed and get lipstick put on it, And so for me, what I'm simply trying to ask here is in this process, when you do all this elaborate planning and tracking and all of that, the question still remains is, how are you going to reach the demographic that's most suffering and in need right now, the population? And that to me is the African-American male and the Black community, okay? And I'm not going to apologize to you on how important that is for us to begin to specifically, not indirectly, specifically target that demographic and uplift it and rise it to its appropriate place. So the rhetoric, you can keep it. I'm not really interested in it. No disrespect to you, brother. The presentation was really good. And I appreciate all of that. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in the least. But what is real difficult for me to sometimes is to sit through these processes of bureaucracy and listen to y'all dance right around me. Dance like as if I'm there, but I'm not. I'm invisible. Okay? And so the reason why I stayed on this committee, even though my partners have gotten up and left, is that I make decisions for myself in my own organization. I don't just get up and just go along with the cart for a reason. But really what I'm trying to do is to figure out a segue for us to be able to somehow or another help you to get to what it is that you and I both need and want, okay? And so for me, I would just like to say, I would like you to be a little bit more specific about how you're gonna help our community. You understand? And so that's where I'm holding that line at. I don't want all this rhetoric about minority this and minority, Hispanic this and that. Look, all the people, and I respect every opportunity and everything that they entitled to got coming to them, I hope they get. But what's important to me right now is to make sure that the Black community is treated fairly and equitably in these processes. And that's why I'm going to remain sitting here for now. So I appreciate that, but bro, that's just where I'm at.
Now, Mr. Washington, I will tell you, you're preaching to the choir here. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow, but I'll make the statement. The African Americans are the focus of this program, point blank. We're going to figure out, and that's why we have a CAC. The strategy is we got to figure in the DBE program, in the federal program, we cannot call out the African American community, at least under the ODOT program specifically. That's just illegal and people would sue us up and down. So we are in a position now that we had to find a way, and it really was finding a way to say, how do we say, yeah, minority, female, but at the end of the day, we have a COAC and that's their job. They're going to bring the heat to how do we do African-American contracting? How do we hire African-Americans? How do we go to the churches and get people to do work? And historically, Albina neighborhood is African-American. And that goes back to, you probably remember the Albina plan way back when. That's the focus. It doesn't say it in the document because the document wouldn't be in front of you if it did. And that's just the truth. And so myself, a bunch of people, Amber, Megan, everybody have had literally months of conversation about how to be and how to do this in a legal way, but also achieve the goal that you, and I'll tell you myself, want to have. So yeah, I get that frustration, probably more than you, because it's just trying to, we should be able to say legally, we want to have African Americans, but we can't. So we're here, but we also have a COAC that has African Americans on it that are very interested in the same thing you are. And they're going to bring that up with the contractor.
Well, just know that as long as I'm on this committee, you're going to be held accountable to that.
And that's why we have monthly reporting. That's why we're going to talk to the contractor, and that's why we have a COAC. And I expect you to hold me accountable. And I will tell you, Bob said it on another committee. I was on another committee, and we had a gentleman named James Posey. You may know him.
I may know James. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And James lit into a contractor about not having African Americans and said, I got more sisters than you got African Americans. So he's on our committee. we're tuned up. We're ready to go. And hold me accountable. We can get you results when they get on here about how many. We're going to count African-American heads to see how many we have.
But I'm just saying, on the federal structure, on the wording alone, that's
Yeah.
something that we have to learn to start addressing. Even when we did the blast to go ask for the CV-19 support from, you know, from the government, they were able to get that. But the joy of that reality was of us working together. But we also come to realize that we know that the same government asked us, well, why didn't we couple with these other people? And historically, that's always the expectation, that somehow or another we can't stand alone, and to somehow or another defend our position and elevate our concerns to a higher priority, to where we become significant. And for me, the issue is about us becoming significant, not so much of a byproduct of a support cast to something. Is that's part of what we find is the problem right about now, is that we have always been the byproduct of somebody's ownership. Okay. But now the day is about us being specific about our needs and addressing those needs, and somehow or another not being some ambiguous product within that structure. So no disrespect to me. Y'all must have just caught me on the evening time right about now, and this is my evening face. But I listened long enough to recognize that, you know, sometimes people can be dressing a pig up, and right in front of you, they can be telling you some stuff, but you got to pay attention to what they saying. Okay. And so if you marginalize me, you take me out of the picture, you throw me into these mega pots. And for me, the civil rights movement was based on the movement of African Americans in this country, and everybody else got heaped in the pot. And somehow or another, they are benefiting more than my black butt is. So I'm just really suspicious when I hear people speak on behalf of us in this global kind of manner. And somehow or another, when you look at the numbers at the end of the day, we still haven't received a percentage of the funds that were dedicated to us in any kind of way. So because of the way it was set up. So that's all I had to share with that. And I appreciate the presentation, and I've seen some of the like NAMAC and all those ones in the structure there. And I appreciate all the people in their work that they've been doing. So I'm looking forward to seeing what y'all can produce out of it.
And I will commit to you, we'll get Christine the monthly reports, and you can look at them. We're going to post them online. It's about transparency. We will, you know, hill or high water. I get results, so we'll get there. I mean, it's going to be a tough road, but we will get there. And if you hang with us, I think we'll get there. It's just we've had a difficult path getting here, and I think it's getting a lot easier now, at least on the DBOJT side, going forward.
Well, y'all ain't had me come to the meeting.
Yeah, well, you're more than welcome. You can come and talk to them too. You're more than welcome.
I'm in the meeting right now, so don't worry, I'm here.
You can come to the COAC too. That's
got a whole lot of meetings I'll be going to, but I tell you what, this one here don't become important. It's a little bit more of a focus point right about now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I get it.
All smooth operators, and I appreciate that on one level, but on the other one, though, you know, take a fox to catch one. Yep. You know, so I'm with you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. Thank you so much for that. Brett and then Steve.
Yeah, I want to echo and uphold that. I appreciate the presentation, and this is something really important that we have to focus on. So I'm going to try to hold this up at the same time I'm making this other comment. And I guess a frustration and more of a question. Based on the presentation, it doesn't sound like the CAC has an imminent role in the DBE process as much as is influencing and oversight and making sure that the goals are there. But my frustration then is, if it's not something we can imminently affect, something like the charter, which was on the agenda for today, and something we can affect and could guide, for example, the DBE work and other work, was taken off the agenda for today. And so it seems like a frustration for me as a CAC member that opportunities to comment and inform the work of the committee have gotten kind of sidestepped. So I guess a question that I'm kind of arising from this, and I don't know who it's from or for, but was there a particular reason that the charter was taken off of today's agenda? Because it seems to me that might be important to inform stuff like this.
there's many things inside of that. I wanted you to spend time with ODOT to ask them questions and to hear their response. They did not respond to the last meeting. The charter, yes, I sent it out to you guys, and I want your feedback. We will have that conversation, but your charter says that your work informs the ESC. It does not inform the COAC. So it informs the covers, it informs what happens on the streets. It informs all of these design things that have not been settled in we're at 15%. And so that is the world of the CAC. We will have that conversation at our next meeting. And then also more of the design. But that is the universe that the CAC works in. Is that good, Brett?
Yeah, I think that helps answer for now.
Okay. Steve?
Hey, Andre, can you illuminate for me why the operating engineers have a 15% design goal as opposed to the other, or not design goal, but the apprenticeship or the minority participation goal? And can you tell us the relationship of Raymore to Hamilton Sunt? And can you, I was frustrated in trying to find out who the bidders were on the general contractor process. I never was able to determine who the other bidders were. And so Bob tells us that one of them was Kiewit. That's no surprise. But how would we know who those other bidders are? Go ahead. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay. I'll address the first one. The reason that the operating engineers is below is they have, it's a little bit technical, but they have in apprenticeship, you have a ratio. So you have to have so many journey people to train a apprentice. And the operators are at 4. They have to have 4 journey people to 1 apprentice. And then as you get really large projects, you can add a lot of apprentices. But at a 4-to-1 relative to a carpenter, that is 1-to-1. So the first carpenter comes out, second one can come out, can be an apprentice, third one, and then it works, and then they change as they grow. But you can get almost 50% carpenters right off the bat. It's difficult for the operators to do that. And so there's an opportunity. The recognition was you generally see on a project operators having difficulty meeting that apprenticeship goal. And we have, and even at the city, at Multnomah County, there's exceptions. And a strategy was, we really wanted to give a good opportunity to have really the apprenticeship versus the contractor asking for an exemption to not meet the goal. The idea is train people, not take an exemption. So it was reduce it and then hold them to the lower goal and really reduce the amount of exemptions that you could provide. To your second question, on the ODOT website, I believe it's on the I-5 project here, there was a list of there was only 2 contractors that provided proposals. That was Kiewit and the Sunt Hamilton. And the relationship, I can't talk about that, as Megan said, because that's still in that contractual stage of procurement. But once that's done, we plan to put their proposal up on the website. Everybody can read it and see what the relationships are and what they proposed.
All right, thanks very much.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Andre. Claire?
Well, can you hear me? I'm not sure if I'm on. Am I good? Thank you for your presentation. I think this stuff is really important, and I'm glad that it's happening and that the COAC is doing its job and moving this forward. I think I share Brett's frustration that we put 75 minutes on the agenda for basically to learn about something that we could have learned by reading a report. And the folks who were interested or had questions could either like ask at a COAC meeting or find some other way of getting that information. But given that we have so much to cover and we only meet 2.5 hours once a month, I feel like this was not a great use of our committee's time. And that goes to echo what I think Chris said about letting the members of the committee have something to say about what goes on the agenda.
Thank you for that feedback, Claire. I appreciate it. Any other questions? Any other observations? We can open up the floor to Andre, to Brendan, to Megan.
I would just like to say thank you for allowing me to come, and I would welcome any of you at any time to a COAC meeting, to same type of venue, and as we start producing reports, to go look at our reports online and see our performance, see the contractor's performance. And if you have comments about that, please at your meeting. It sounds like you don't want to take the time, but get them to Christine and she'll get them to me and we'll get them in front of the COAC. So thank you.
Any other closing remarks, thoughts, concerns? Okay. Well, I really appreciate how you are asking us to really do it differently. I will be back to the committee to explore with you how we can set the agenda to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need. We will go over the charter at the next meeting, as well as design would be my suggestion, because that's really where your expertise is needed. And I am, oh, Chris, yes, raising your hand. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, I was wondering if it would be possible. I don't have a list of how to contact the other committee members. If there was an email address, if people are comfortable sharing them, so we could communicate one-to-one to follow up on certain points.
Yeah, I've been blind carbon copying people, so I will ask you to let me know if it's okay for everybody else to have your email, so you guys can talk to each other. So send me an email, give me a thumbs up, let me know, yes, no.
I would love to be able to communicate with the other committee members. I want to caution all of us that there are public records laws that apply to our work. And so I think it would be really great if we could set up some sort of listserv or something that we can all read, but that's also publicly accessible, so that we can make sure to follow those laws, but also communicate outside of meetings. I hope that's something that can be set up.
Yeah, and that's important, but of course we're already kept in the dark about, say, why the agenda changed and things like that, and who's even on the committee anymore, and the internal communications around that. So it doesn't, I mean, if the discussion is one-to-one, I don't believe it's necessary. If we're doing it in a group format, it becomes more of a public records issue. But if we're having one-to-one communication, there's ways around the public records stuff. So
Got it.
I appreciate there needs to be a record if there's a group discussion. That's certainly appropriate. But I don't think there's a problem. Though I don't want to scare people off from talking to each other one-to-one. We would be sitting in the corner after a meeting if this was in person, and we could have a brief chat about a particular issue, or even just get to know each other.
Got it. Yeah, I thought you were talking about group email. So thanks for clarifying.
Andrew?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if there was a suggestion that within these Zoom meetings, if there could be a accessibility to the chat, like a chat within the Zoom. I've noticed today there was no like access or opportunities to chat in Zoom to the other candidates.
Right, because yeah, that is very true, Andrew. It becomes a public record also, the chat does. So I'd rather have us be, out here in front, tell me, I'm bad or whatever.
That makes sense. And then I do appreciate all of the presentations. I really just kind of hoping that the next meetings are very action-based focus with really updates on what actions that ODOT already did and trying to get their partnership back with certain organizations, especially if they want to focus on the Black community, but then just any like ethnic, racial equity wise, it's always good to share to come with the things that y'all already done. While also showing that, y'all, we are really listening to what we are suggesting to y'all. And so that's just a few suggestions, but I do appreciate everything.
Thank you so much. Any other comments?
So sis, am I what I'm hearing you say, Christine, am I hearing you say that next week, the things that the committee has asked for is we're gonna basically go over the charter and we're gonna go over the reality of how we can start creating our own agendas, right?
Yep.
So does it work like that? All it needs for us to ask you for something and begin to ask the committee for how we want to shape it. And then that means we can move forward in the way we want to shape this committee as we move. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Brave new world.
Excited.
I know, right?
You ask for it, you get it, right? I mean,
Exactly. So our next meeting, write this down, August 20th, 5:30 to 8. I'll send out a calendar hold for that. And then I'll also send out September and October's meetings too. Try and get those on your calendars ahead of time. Thank you, everyone. I truly appreciate everything you have said this evening. I appreciate your authenticity and your passion and compassion. So onward and upward. See you next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.